Hello, beautiful people. I hope that wherever you are in the world, that you are doing well and that you are taking care of yourselves. I'm Chris Danker, and this is Let the Adventure Begin. Let the Adventure Begin with Chris Danker podcast. Hi, welcome to episode 143 on building a good day. I talked a little bit about this book last week, and like I said, I'm going to get to a comprehensive chat about it in the future, but I'm reading a book by Mary Pipher called Women Rowing North, Navigating Life's Currents and Flourishing as We Age. And one of the chapters is just on that topic, building a good day. And as we get older, our day takes on new meaning. And so I just kind of want to delve into this topic a little bit. And it's if you're looking for Chris is going to talk about how I should build my day specifically, then this is not the episode for you. But it's more or less talking about some of the give and take, maybe what we have been through in our earlier life and how we can kind of navigate that as we are continuing to move forward. So, when I was thinking about, my days when I was in my probably mid-20s to mid-40s, my day pretty much ran itself. I don't want to say it was on autopilot, but it was more or less I was focused on my career, coaching, marriage, our children and their activities. And so I really didn't have to think too much about my day. It started with my teaching from, obviously started with getting up in the morning, getting myself ready, getting the kids ready, Jack and I getting out the door to our respective teaching jobs and getting the kids to school, obviously. And then after school, I coached. And then we get home and, a lot of times, especially when our kids were younger, our kids went to practices with me at times. They attended my husband's practices at times when he was coaching. Our kids very much became gym rats. And so then, by the time we got home, had a meal, did homework, had some family time. It's time to go to bed and then start the whole process over again the next day. And then as our kids got older and did more things on their own, it did free up some time. However, it also, we were going to their activities and what they were involved with. Because as many of us know, when your parents and your kids get involved in things that they enjoy, you are along for the ride and you get to watch them and experience all of their joys and successes and some of their disappointments with them. And you're getting to get that, enjoy that part of their lives with them. And then when they become adults and don't need us as much, that's when things start to get a little interesting. And so that, is when we are freed up. We're not necessarily needed as much. And that's why this chapter of Women Rowing North really started speaking to me because, even though I'm not retirement yet, I have obviously, our kids are in their 30s now. And so they have their own lives. And that has freed up some time, which is both exciting and kind of scary at times. And so I want to read from the Women Rowing North, page 129. So if you ever get the book, this is where I'm reading it from. And it's with older women, everything comes with an asterisk. We can enjoy our lives if we acknowledge their intensity and poignancy, and if we have reasonable expectations. My Aunt Grace said, I get what I want, but I know what to want. And that is a key component, is knowing what to want. And recently I read a piece from one of my favorite authors, Ryan Holiday, and he talked about knowing what your philosophy is. He said a lot of times coaches and just people in general, you'll ask, what is your philosophy? And a lot of us are just winging it. And so it really started getting me to think about, what is my philosophy? And he had a lot of tips and ideas. And I think the key for me is that I want to make a positive contribution each day. If someone said, what is your philosophy? There it is. That's it. I want to make a positive contribution each day. I am very fortunate that I've been in a career path over 31 years of being an educator and school counselor, that I've been able to do that in some small way each and every day I've been in the classroom or my counseling office, to be able to make a positive contribution each day. And I think that becomes a little more of a challenge, especially for me being in education, where it's just a natural part of my day, to how to navigate that philosophy as I enter retirement in a couple of years. So a lot of people do get lost in their retirement. They suddenly have a lot of time on their hands. As women, we go for many times from caregiving roles to not being needed as much. And it's great, but like I said, it's also a challenge. And as I said to my husband, if I haven't been asked for my opinion, I just need to shut my mouth, which is very hard for me to do. And I think it's all very hard for a lot of us women who naturally go into that caregiving role. And I don't care if you've had children or you don't have children. I think it's, for women in general, it's a very innate characteristic that we have. We just are caregivers in one way, shape, or form. And we're very well intentioned, but sometimes our opinion is not asked for. And so we need to be able to step back and, like I said, shut our mouths. When we really have to bite our tongue because we know we could really say something that would be impactful. But sometimes people need to be able to figure that out for themselves, or wait to be asked and then be able to give some suggestions or some advice. So I feel like that's hard because like I said, for those of us who have had children, that's just a natural part of who we are. And like I said, even if you haven't had children, I feel like many women, or all women, are caregivers in some way, shape, or form. So it's kind of like thinking about, all right, what do you want? And, we as we get older, life becomes simpler when we realize that we're not necessarily in a hurry anymore. We can slow down. Like I said, when we're in the throes of, like I said, for me early on, early in my 20s and through my 40s, that it was, go, 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 and going from one thing to another. And so we're kind of always in that hurry mode. And then as we get older, realizing that we don't have to be in that hurry mode anymore, or as nearly as much as we previously were. Another thing that I thought was interesting in this book is, and I want to read these two paragraphs to you because these two paragraphs really spoke to me as well. A skill similar to maintaining reasonable expectations is keeping things in perspective. 30 years ago, my husband and I lost a good friend to brain cancer, and since then, when we start to get worked up, we tell each other, "This isn't brain cancer." When people lose their homes in tornadoes or hurricanes, we often hear the most resilient ones saying, "At least nobody died." When times are tough, think short term. Long term, we are all going to die. But short term, we can plan for happiness one day at a time. If life is particularly rough, think in terms of the next 10 minutes. So building a good day isn't, saying that every day is going to be all rainbows and unicorns, because it isn't. But it's also, as Mary Pipher writes, it's all about keeping things in perspective. And If you've ever heard of the book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it's all small stuff, kind of keep that in mind. But I think it's important to, be in control of what you want the day to bring. And often that starts the night before. It starts the night before with kind of planning out what you want the next day to look like. Of course, it never, follows through minute by minute what we have put in our planners or what we kind of sketch out for our day. But when we have an idea as to what we want our day to look like, we have a better chance of that happening. And it's just slowing down, putting things in perspective, and just remembering that we don't have to always be in a hurry. So I just wanted to share some of those thoughts with you. Like I said, no matter what your age, but I feel like as women, as we are reaching a certain age, and for myself, knowing I'm a couple of years away from retirement, and keeping some of these snippets from this book in mind, I think it really helps, especially when it goes to building a good day. Notice I didn't say building a perfect day. It's simply building a good day. So I hope that you are having a fabulous week. And until next week, I hope you let your adventure begin. Peace.